for the preparation of the national communication and other reports, such as the biennial transparency report at the National Council on Climate Change and Clean Development Mechanism and the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, both national focal points before the UNFCCC. Dominican Republic has submitted 3 national communications and the first biennial update report. As a result of the Climate Action Transparency Initiative, ICAT Decree 541/20 was enacted, creating the national system of measurement, reporting, and verification of greenhouse gases of the Dominican Republic, MRV, that seeks to establish a flow of periodic and standardized data information. At the same time, we are developing national capacity to carry out greenhouse gas inventory in the responsible institutions. For the previous report, international experts worked here to carry out the greenhouse gas inventory. They delivered a finished product, and we could not have a traceability of the information. We are working to have a data storage to ensure its availability. As for institutional arrangement, the decree mandates the public sector, but the private sector is different. With the support of ICAT mitigation second phase, we will begin consultation with the case shareholder to establish agreements for the flow of the information and improve reporting, especially in the IPPU sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominican Republic, for your intervention. Now I would like to open the floor for questions from the parties. I will collect a number of questions from the parties before I give the floor to the delegate from Dominican Republic to respond.
I haven't been first yet. This is
now.
Oh, sorry. Is it for me?
I think so.
Can you give me the floor?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Just have to correct it.
The European Union has the floor, number 66.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to the Dominican Republic for its first BUR. And also thank you for your presentation and for your remarks today. We have a couple of questions, starting with the 2006 guidelines. So what have been your experiences with the use of the 2006 IPCC guidelines in your national inventory? What do you think are the main challenges in applying these guidelines? And the second question, in which sectors of the inventory is the estimation of emissions particularly challenging for your country, and whether these challenges are more related to data availability or to the methodologies? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. The floor goes to number 54, the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dominican Republic, for your presentation. In your first biennial update report, and as mentioned in your opening statement, the Dominican Republic is developing a national MRV system. Please could you tell us more about how you are prioritizing actions to develop the system and any early lessons learned? Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. The floor goes to Japan, number 51.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to Dominican Republic for submitting their first BUR. And also thank you for your presentation and the statement. We'd like to ask about the GHG inventory. The Dominican Republic reported its GHG inventory for the period of 2010 to 2015 in its first BUR. What are the challenges that need to be overcome to report emissions in more recent years? Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. The floor goes to India, number 48.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for giving us the floor. And at the outset, I would like to congratulate our friends from Dominican Republic. Please accept our heartiest congratulations for submitting your first BUR. We find that the total emissions which are reported, they stand at 24.634 million tons, whereas the net emissions are of the order of 35.486 million tons. So obviously the LULUCF sector is contributing to the net emissions. So we would like to know what strategy do you have to address these emissions. The second point is regarding we also find that there are no emissions from solid waste and open burning of the waste. So waste is contributing about 15.7 or so % of the total GHG emissions in 2015. And lastly, if there are any challenges, because like any other country in the world, we all are passing through difficult COVID-19 pandemic times. So I'm sure you would have had the period of this BUR as a very challenging one. If you could also say something on that. With these questions, once again, our congratulations to our brothers and sisters from Dominican Republic. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, India. We have more states that have requested the floor for questions, so I will work out the first block of countries. So please, Dominican Republic, if you can provide answers for the European Union, United Kingdom, Japan, and India, and we'll continue with the second block of questions.
Thank you. Okay. I will try to remember or answer all part of them. The first one, the challenge to the using the IPCC 2006 rules or guide was a very challenge. We had to recalculate the lags in greenhouse gas inventory to update the new inventory, because in the lags inventory we use other guide. So to can update the inventory, we have to recalculate twice inventory. So it was was a challenge, but was useful because we learn in the way. So develop our capacity with this guide. With the MRV system, we are we have a degree that implement the MRV system. We facilitate the flow of the information in the public sector, for example, energy, waste, and not like that for the private sector, but we have a good relationship with the cement industry, for example, in PPU sector. We can to work in the Tier 2 with this sector, but not like this in the waste sector. That is, we don't is less data to work this sector because we don't have an organized how we can say cabildos. Okay. We have problem with the municipal data, so they don't have data availability to work the inventory. We have to use indirect data or second-hand data, exactly, because they're not to take account this data. So we are working with the municipality to get the flow of data, or more or less establish a system with the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, who created a wasted directorate. So it's very new, it's working in the planning this case. And the other one of inventory, why our inventory was 2010 to 2015, because we have to take the base year of the last inventory that was 2009. So we have to work 2010 to 2015. We had to submit our first reports in 2017 or 18, but we had problem with the inventory and to get data. So we have to submit in 2019. Okay, the other one was the strategy to reduce emission in our most emission sector, that was energy. The energy sector is the sector that was more in disposition to reduce its emission. So they will compromise to reduce sector de energía se va a comprometer a reducir el doble de las emisiones propuestas de la RDC.
Energy sector compromises to reduce
Okay.
the double quantity.
Okay, sorry. The energy sector was compromised to reduce the double quantity that we put in the NDC for that sector. So they are working in the transition to renewable energy and working to change our power generation. Okay, our power generation matrix, sorry. But he compromised to reduce the double quantity that we put in the NDC, so we can get the goals that we put in this and for more. And solid waste, I have told that we don't have an organized municipal, so we are working to implementing vertederos. I don't remember. Okay, the waste is in cielo abierto. Okay. The waste is open sky, so we don't have a system to recycle, to management the waste. So the waste is in storage without treatment. So we are working in the future to enhance this topic and to get data in a 5 municipal. We have a pilot to working. The first one is Santo Domingo, our city, the big one. The other one is Santiago, the second city of Dominican Republic, and in other three, but I don't remember now. But we are a pilot to work with them to management the wasted and getting data for the inventory. I don't remember the other one. If you want, if I left something, if I forgot something, you can remember me. The other one. Okay, the processing to review the BUR in the pandemic was very sui generis because we have to virtual meeting. All meeting was virtual. Was real challenging, but we have a fluent information between the TTA and Dominican Republic consultants. Was very useful for us because we can see all mistakes that we have in the document. We can learning about them, and we can to take in account the lesson learning for the future, such as the national communication of the BUR and the BTR. So I think that was very useful for us, this experience.
Thank you, Dominican Republic. Now we'll move to the second block of the states that have requested the floor. The next country is Germany, number 63.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, we would also like to congratulate the Dominican Republic for the submission of its first BUR, its pre-recorded presentation, as well as the introductory statement made this afternoon. To the question, in the presentation made, several lessons learned were highlighted from going through the process of international consultation and analysis. We would like to ask the Dominican Republic to briefly elaborate on the lessons learned in this process of preparing and submitting the country's first BUR. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. The floor goes to Australia, number 28.
Thank you very much to the Dominican Republic for their presentation and congratulations for their first biannual update report. In that report, you state that almost 1,000 megawatts of wind-generated electricity has been installed or is under construction or approved, which is double the target of 500 megawatts. We'd be interested to know what has driven this successful rollout of wind-generated electricity. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. And the last state to take the floor is the United States, number 21.
Thank you. We would also like to congratulate the Dominican Republic for completing their first BUR. You've identified a number of capacity building needs, and we would be interested in understanding a little bit more of some of your priorities in addressing those capacity building needs. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates from the second block of parties, for the questions. Dominican Republic, you have the floor for the responses.
Sorry, but we can listen to the last question, the two first, yes, but the last question we don't listen.
The question by United States, can you please repeat it, please?
Yes, sorry. We are interested in hearing some of your prioritization of capacity building needs identified.
Okay, sorry. With the transition to energy renewable project, we can get the now we have the 23% of our energy serving is renewable. Hydric generation, aeolic generation, solar energy, yes. We have the 23% of our energy serving, but installed is 30%, but the serving energy is 30 to 30. We hope with the 2030, we have 35% of our energy serving will be renewable. So this is the project transition for energy renewable, yes. We have this project. And the third question is capacity building for greenhouse inventory. Okay. In Dominican Republic, before 2010, we don't have a specialty in greenhouse inventory. So in the third communication, we at the same time, we were working the third communication and development capacity building in greenhouse gas inventory technical in Dominican Republic. In the BUR, all technical who make the greenhouse gas inventory was made by Dominican. Every technical was Dominican in the fourth sector. In energy, wasted, IBBU, AFOLU. So we continue to develop capacity in the public sectors and the private sector too at the same time for to standardize the data that they generate. So we hope in the future that all technical who work the greenhouse gas inventory and the MRV system are Dominican.
Thank you, Dominican Republic. I would like now to invite Uruguay to make a short statement. It will be delivered by Natalie Pareja, National Climate Change Director of the Ministry of Environment. Mrs. Pareja, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Uruguay is a small country in area with a population of 3.5 people and open economy based on agro-industrial, production and service and tourism sector focus, especially on the coast area. Its population and main infrastructures are exposed to flood and rising sea levels, while agricultural production systems are vulnerable to drought and floods. For this reason, Uruguay has given...
Uruguay, if you allow me, can you pull the microphone closer to you? It's hard to listen to what you say.
No se escucha nada, ¿no? For this reason, Uruguay has given priority to the implementation of measures that increase resilience and adaptation to climate change. But although the priority is adaptation, Uruguay has implemented several policies and programs that promote early mitigation actions, including the improvement of the energy matrix, the promotion of renewable energies, sustainable and efficient transport, in the increase of efficiency and productivity in agricultural production system, the conservation of carbon stock in forest land, grassland, wetland, and farmland, and waste management. Uruguay stands out for the early incorporation of the issue of climate change in the structure of the state, and this is seen with the creation of the National Climate Change Response System, the main area of interinstitutional coordination chaired by Ministry of Environment. Uruguay's national climate change policy represented a great deal of work in addressing the issue at the national level, seeking a more resilient society on the way to a low carbon economy. Uruguay present in their first NDC in 2017, including gas disaggregator mitigation target by 2025, unconditional and conditional on specific additional means of implementation. During the year 2020, the Ministry of Environment and the National Director of Climate Change were created, which demonstrates the will to improve the importance of the environment issue and at the national level and the aspect of climate change in particular. In 2020, the Working Group on National Greenhouse Gas Inventories was formalized by Executive Decree, which operates the national system of national greenhouse gas inventories and ensures the quality of the inventory truth, the planning, preparation, and management of the activities, ensuring the transparency and coherence of the inventories. Uruguay's long-term climate strategy for low emission and climate resilient development is currently under public consultation, whose objective is to agree and explain a long-term vision on greenhouse gas emission and removal and adaptation, resilience and risk reduction by 2050, which will facilitate the definition of medium and short-term action that will be included in the successive NDCs. This strategy will be present to the Convention later this year. While the country has interest in ensuring a low carbon economy and is willing to continue developing mitigation measures with the own efforts, many of the measures identified in our national policy and in the NDC need additional specific means of implementation to be implemented. Additional resources are also needed for adaptation priorities that have been planned through the development of sectorial national adaptation plans. In the real, Uruguay will continue to need support with regard to the preparation and presentation of the different reports and the preparation for the new commitment for the Biennial Transparency Report. Thank you.
Thank you, Uruguay. Now I would like to open the floor for questions from the parties. I will collect, as before, a number of questions from the parties before inviting the delegate from Uruguay to provide the answers. Which is the second one? Switch it on. Okay. The first party is number 48, India. India, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to congratulate Uruguay for submitting their third BUR, one of the few developing countries who have submitted 3 BURs. So I congratulate on this achievement. I have a few questions related to your inventory. We would like to know the reason for high level of uncertainty of around 64%, which you have reported in 2017 inventory, and what are the measures you are taking to reduce this uncertainty level. We would also like to know the uncertainty level in your previous BURs which you have submitted to the UNFCCC. My second question is also related to the inventory, and I would like to know the reasons for steep increase in the IPPU sector emissions, which you have reported among the highest of the 5 sectors at 186% between 1990 and 2017. We would also be interested to know the percentage of tier 2 and tier 3 emissions which you have reported in this BUR, so that we could have some lessons of how you have achieved this high rate of tier emissions. And finally, I would also like to ask you about your FLU emissions, which contribute maximum to your emissions. So what are the measures the government plans to take to reduce the emissions from the animal husbandry sector, which is among the highest in the FLU sector? Once again, congratulations to Uruguay for submitting their third BUR. Thank you.
Thank you, India. The floor goes to Switzerland, number 57.
Switzerland thanks Uruguay for its presentation and the introduction. In the context of its update on domestic MRV arrangements, Uruguay reported in the third biennial update report on the implementation of a MRV pilot for 50 of the 106 measures included in a nationally determined contribution. Could Uruguay provide some additional information on the approach chosen for this pilot? Are there experience gained so far that Uruguay might want to share on this occasion? Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. The floor goes to number 53, the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Uruguay for the presentation, and also congratulations on the third BUR. You mentioned in your presentation today that you plan to focus more on climate adaptation rather than climate mitigation in the future. I'm interested to hear more about that. In particular, do you see there being significant co-benefits between adaptation and mitigation, and how will you address these in the future? Thank you very much.
Thank you, UK. The next party, and then we will give the floor to Uruguay for the first set of answers, is Slovakia, number 26.
Thank you, Vice Chair, for the floor. Slovakia would also like to congratulate Uruguay to the successful submission of its third biennial update report. Slovakia has one question for a little clarification. Uruguay, in its presentation and also in its third biennial update report, plans for energy efficiency are presented, which address various sectors. Could you please provide an example of a sector where it is possible and beneficial to address energy efficiency? Thank you.
Thank you, Slovakia. Uruguay, you have the floor for the first set of answers to the block of the countries. and then we will continue with the other states that have requested the floor. So number 12.
Well, good afternoon. I don't have the answer for all the questions that you are asking, but I'll try to get them before we finish this meeting. So I start for the ones that I really can talk about. So I'm going to the percentage of ER emissions that India asked, right? Well, I think it is known that we have gone through a really transformational change in our energy matrix. It's been done a few years now, and though we depend also on hydropower, and that depends on climate. In the last years, we've had 97, 96. 94% of renewables on the power mix, and that has been done through a lot of through many actions. One of them is a policy, a state. A long-term state policy, and that was focused on planning, focusing on adaptation to climate change and variability, because reducing dependence on hydropower was really important. And the diversification we've done in sources and also in locations and providers was the solution. Uruguay has a macroeconomic conditions also that allow that. And we had also a public utility who is it owns the monopoly in transmission and distribution, and it play a very important role in the implementation of this policy. We also had a very good response in auctions for solar, biomass, and wind power. And well, the academic sector also played an important role there. About why we prioritize adaptation is because we are suffering it. We are vulnerable to climate change. As our director said, we have an important coastline. We are very, I don't know. We don't have big heights, And so we need to focus on adaptation, but that doesn't mean we are not going to do what we have to do in mitigation. And I think the energy policy is a way to show it, because we focus on adaptation, but we obtained it through mitigation. That's, I think, a good way to show that we need adaptation, but we are really compromised in mitigation. About the question about an example on efficiency, I think there are many examples, but in general, like ecoetiquetado, it's etiquetado. Labeling. Like efficiency labeling for like in general appliances, it's very important. For us, that has been an important part of energy savings that are part of the plan of energy efficiency. And I think that's the better example in terms of what it has achieved. But there are this energy efficiency plan has many strategic lines, including ESCOs, energy saving companies, including promotion with very protocolized measures, monitoring, and also there are also many ways of promoting this strategic line as energy efficiency. About one of the questions about the increasing of IPPU, that's because the increase on cement production. That's the main reason. This GHG inventory was done in a moment with an economic growth, and construction traditionally accompanies economic growth. I think that about uncertainty. I hope I can tell you a little later.
Thank you, Uruguay. We will now move to the states that have asked the floor again. The second block of countries, states. The European Union, number 66, has the floor.
Thank you, and I also join my colleagues in congratulating Uruguay for its third biennial report. Also, thank you for answering the questions that we sent to you in the written phase, and also for your presentation and your remarks today. In your third BUR, which was submitted at the end of 2019, Uruguay reported greenhouse gas inventory for years up to 2017. So this is like T-2, so reporting year -2. What arrangements do you have in place to report an inventory that contains these so recent years? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. And the last state is Luxembourg, number 62.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you also, Uruguay, for the presentation that you share with us, and also the information you share today. And yes, the presentation, I really like your Sankey graphic in the presentation. It's a nice idea that I will have to consider in Luxembourg. Thank you for that. Now I turn to my question. You say in your report that the share of wind energy in power generation has shown important increase in the recent years. And I was wondering, what are the conditions that led to that? I suppose there are geographical conditions because of the location of Uruguay, the vast plain that you have, and the small hills, but also are there some political arrangement put in place, or a strategy put in place to really develop this wind power in Uruguay? Thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. As a matter of fact, there's one more state that has requested the floor, number 59, China.
Thanks for Chair for the floor, and thanks for China has a question that in your support needed for capacity building, you mentioned that there is difficult to compelling data on financial resources related to climate change. So could you please share what's the reason, what's the difficulty of this, the main reason for this difficulty? Is it due to a lack of financial definition or something else? Thank you.
Thank you, China. Uruguay, you have the floor for the second round of questions, for the answers to the second round. Number 12.
Okay. About arrangements, what it means, I think maybe this answers also part of China's question. The capacity building needs reported in the BUR refer to defining country-specific emission factors, because you know our main emission sector is agriculture. And we are almost certain that we need to work a lot on specific country-specific emission factors. And for that, we need to develop methodologies also for mitigation and soil sequestration. And these actions will impact the quality of the inventory, as well the monitoring and mitigation actions. Another thing that is important here is it's only international cooperation is being reported now. So it's in that part of the climate change analysis about cooperation. It's not very clear which part is really for climate, which part is for other issues. This was about what I have to say about arrangements. Well, I'm sorry, EU, when you ask about arrangements, I think you were talking about the arrangements that are made to generate the GHG inventory. That was the question. I don't know what's
62, you have the floor.
66.
Oh, no, sorry, 66.
Yeah, the question was about generating the inventory so timely, like you have a time series that is very close to the reported inventory, whether you have regulatory measures or data providers that report the data this type of question. How do you generate an inventory? Thank you.
Uruguay 12. Please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. The arrangements we have is we have a decree that creates the GHG inventory group, and it has members from the different ministries that provide the information, with the leadership of the Ministry of Environment. And it's a little different between the different sectors. In the case of energy, that I can talk about better. We usually get we usually publicate the national energy balance in September of the following year, so the information from energy is coming pretty fast, at least for us. In the agricultural sector, it's much harder. And it usually comes like a year and a half later. So but this year we are going to before the end of the year, I think we are going to have 2018 and I believe 2019 also. But it's based on it's not really decentralization. But it's with the participation of the different ministries who provide the information from industry, energy, agriculture, and waste.
Thank you, Uruguay, for the answers to the questions from the parties. If you wish to provide more answers to the questions, please send an email to the Secretariat and the answers will be provided to the parties. I would like now to invite Oman to make a short statement. It will be delivered by Yassin Harabi from the Sultan Qaboos University. Professor Harabi will participate remotely through the COP26 platform. Professor Harabi, you have the floor. There's no number. It's Professor Harabi virtually. I have been told by the Secretariat that there's a representative from Oman in the room, Mrs. Samah Al Sibli. I apologize if I mispronounce the name. Climate Change Specialist, Civil Aviation Authority. Mrs. Sibli, can you make the presentation? I don't know the number. I don't have a number now because it was virtual. The number is 27.
Thank you very much. At first, I apologize for the technical problem, as this statement planned to present virtually by Prof. Yassin, as he is the responsible specialist for the preparation of the BUR. So, because of this problem, I will present a brief statement about our first BUR. Oman officially submitted its first BUR in 2019. As it's presented, the total emission increased about 4.6 times over the period from 1994 to 2015, whereas the energy sector is responsible for the increasing trend in GHG emission, followed by industry sector. Oman has adopted a policy to produce 2,450 megawatt of renewable energy by 2025, mainly from solar energy. Oman has used the BUR data as the basic for the updating of its second national determined contributions. During the preparation of BUR, we faced several challenges regarding the data collection and experiences needed to prepare such a report. As for technical and capacity building needs, mainly we need support to develop MRV system to improve the certainty of data and make the process of data collection more easier. Also, we need support to be able to use Tier 2 and Tier 3 in GHG inventory, as well as the need for capacity building for the specialists working in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oman. I would like now to open the floor for questions by the parties. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the parties for the questions. We will start with number 66, the European Union.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and congratulations to Oman for its first BUR, and also thank you for your presentation and for your excellent statement today. We have one question, and it relates to fugitive emissions. So in your presentation and biennial update report, fugitive emissions of methane from the oil and gas industry have increased considerably in recent years. Are there any mitigation actions planned or under consideration to address methane emissions in the oil and gas industry in Oman? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. The next party is number 54, the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Oman, for your presentation. Energy is the largest emitting sector in Oman. Please can you outline how you will expand your solar capacity and what, if any, Oman's capacity building needs in the energy sector? Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. The next party is Luxembourg, number 62.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you also, Oman, for jumping in for the presentation. And my question turns about what you said at the end of your short statement. It relates to the fact that you have capacity buildings request, and you mentioned that you need some capacity building for developing Tier 2 or Tier 3 methodologies for the greenhouse gas inventories. I suppose, looking at your inventory, that you need this capacity building essentially for the energy sector, but also the IPPU sectors, as it has been mentioned also in a previous question about the fugitive emissions. Can you confirm that? And on top of that, what are really the challenges that you are facing? Is it data availability? Is it methodologies? Are they both challenging for you? Could you provide such a bit more explanation about the capacity building needs that you would like to get from other parties? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luxembourg. And the next party is Denmark, number 40.
Thank you, Chair. And I would also like to congratulate Oman for his first BUR. And thank you for your presentation and your statement today. Oman's presentation and its biennial update report addresses various mitigation actions in the area of renewable energy. And Oman has mentioned in its presentation that 50 megawatt of wind energy is already commercially available, and important solar capacity is scheduled to enter into production still this year. And UK came with a question on the solar side. I could come with a question on the wind side. Could you briefly elaborate on an example of wind project that was recently completed or will be completed soon? For example, if the wind capacity is developed on land or offshore, or if you know what size in capacity per wind turbine you are planning for? Thank you.
Thank you, Denmark. This is the first block of parties. I understand from the technicians that Professor Harabi has established the connection. So, Mrs. Sibley, are you going to be who's going to answer the questions? Is it going to be yourself or Professor Harabi? '27.
If it's on, he will answer.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello, Professor Harabi. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, I did not hear the question of European Union and the question of UK. But coming back to the question of Luxembourg about energy, about uncertainty on energy sector and industrial process and product use, the problem that we have faced is related to the data, mainly for oil and gas industry for the fugitive emission. As you know, we have a lot of company, and the oil and gas industry Oman is expanded over vast area, and it's very difficult to have an accurate information about venting and flaring for the processing and the different activity in upstream and downstream. We need a national framework where we have to engage all the company working in Oman to provide the data and to collect the data according to the same framework. This is a challenge for the next coming years. I know it's doable and feasible. We have one of the two biggest company in the country ready to go in this process, but we need a policy framework where we can engage the other company to provide the data with the same level of accuracy. This is our challenge for the energy sector. For the industrial process and product use, also we're facing problem also related to the quality of the data that we collect from the different industry. Usually, we don't have good record of this data, mainly for the previous year. Now, we developed an online system where we are going to use it for the first BTR. This data will be collected online with the different actors from private and government sector. And I think the quality of the inventory for the IPU will improve gradually for the next inventory. Regarding the question of the Nawar, thank you for this question related to wind project. The first commercial wind project in Oman is in the southern part of Oman. It's around 50 megawatt. And we expect that the wind will increase over the next 5 years to 350 megawatt, mainly for onshore. The investigation for the offshore is situated in a remote area, and the connection with the grid will be challenging for the next for the offshore wind. But I know that we have some technical problem because the area where we have high potential of offshore wind is situated in deep water, near Halaniyat Island, the southern part of Oman. But as I mentioned, there is a challenge to the connection of the grid because in this area almost there is no population, and we need the deep investigation about the cost of connection to the grid. But as I mentioned, the first wind project, which is entered commercially in 2019, which was the first project in the region, in the GCC country, and this will expand for the next coming years up to 350 megawatt. We have a good management for the energy sector now under the umbrella of Minister of Energy, and we have different actors like a national company for energy to purchase energy, which is responsible for planning, and the regulator of offshore renewable energy in Oman. Hello.
Okay. So we can. I guess it was not a technical issue that he was disconnected. Okay, so we move to the next parties. India, number 48, has the floor.
I would like to congratulate Oman for submitting their first BUR. I would like to know if there were any challenges in preparing the first BUR. The question about the IPPU was also, which I wanted to ask, has been also raised by European Union and UK. But we would like to know what measures Oman is taking to control the fugitive emissions from the oil and gas sector, which has contributed to around increasing the emissions of the IPPU sector by around 50 times in last 21 years. So what are the measures Oman wants to take, is contemplating taking in this sector? I was also curious to understand that you have reported zero emissions from the LULUCF sector. Were there any challenges in estimating the emissions from this sector? I once again congratulate Oman for submitting their first BUR. Thank you.
Thank you, India. And the last party is number 28, Australia.
Thank you very much to the Chair, and congratulations, Oman, for submitting your first BUR. I have a question about your second NDC. In that NDC, it cites decarbonisation of the transport sector as a concern for Oman. We were wondering what policies, actions or measures Oman is considering to reduce emissions in its transport sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. The floor goes once again to Professor Harabi for the next round of answers. Oh, okay. Professor Harabi. No. Professor Harabi, we cannot hear you. Is it possible for Mrs. Sibley to take the floor? '27.
For India questions, we will send the answers to Secretariat, as we don't have the answers here now. And for Australia questions, we are now working with the Green Climate Fund for the preparing of a low carbon strategy in transport sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Oman. Excuse me.
We can ask again the chair again with Yasin and ask him to unmute himself because the article was muted.
Professor Harabi, the technicians tell me that you have to try to unmute yourself in order to provide the answers for the last questions, if you wish. Well, it doesn't seem to be the... Oh. Professor Harabi, can you speak? No, it's not possible. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the connection, well, the malconnection. And please, Oman, send the answers to the secretariats for the parties who have placed the questions that there was no answer given. Saying this, we are now moving to the next state, which is Tajikistan, to make a short statement. It will be delivered by Muzaffar Sotmonov from the Agency on Hydrometeorology of the Committee on Environmental Protection. Ms. Sotmonov, you have the floor. Number 43.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me floor. This is the first experience for Tajikistan to be in a facilitative sharing of views and submitting the first BUR. So we have established our institutional and regulatory framework in Tajikistan. The focal point is the Agency for Hydrometeorology under the Committee for Environmental Protection. Still, we have submitted 3 national communications, and this is the first BUR of Tajikistan. In the end of this year, Tajikistan will submit the first national communication. And for the institutional arrangements on the MRV side, the government is looking forward to establish the MRV framework in Tajikistan, starting with GNG inventory and monitoring of investment projects on national level. For the GNG inventory, I would like to say during the preparation of the second NDC of Tajikistan, all the data sets starting from the 90s till the last inventory year, 2016, was revised, compiled, and by using the new GVPs and under the methodologies of the IPCC 2006. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sodmonov, for the intervention. I would like now to open the floor for the questions from the parties. The first party to take the floor for the questions is number 66, the European Union.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and congratulations to Tajikistan for the first BUR, also for your presentation today and your remarks. In your presentation, pre-recorded presentation, the government's plan for the transition from the current MRV system to the enhanced transparency framework is laid out. Which are some of the challenges which you expect in this transition, in particular in the first stages of the transition? Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. The next part is number 57, Switzerland.
Switzerland would like to commend Tajikistan for submitting its first biennial update report and actively participating in this facilitative sharing of views. We have two questions. One, what are the main lessons learned from the international consultation and analysis exercises with regard to Tajikistan's greenhouse gas inventory? Second, what are Tajikistan's priorities with regard to inventory improvement on the basis of available expertise and capacity, or on condition that additional international support is provided? Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland. The next part is number 21, the United States.
Thank you. We would like to commend Tajikistan on submitting their first BUR and on using the 2006 IPCC guidelines. Similarly, we commend Tajikistan on efforts to recalculate the 2004 to 2014 emissions time series using 2006 IPCC guidelines relative to its previous NC3. Are there any lessons to be learned from this process that Tajikistan could elaborate on that other countries may find useful? Thank you.
Thank you, United States. The next part is number 53, the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Tajikistan for the presentation, and congratulations on the first BUR. We were interested to see that developing green employment and encouraging environmental entrepreneurship were identified as key priorities for Tajikistan's national development strategy. Could you tell us more about progress in these areas and any successes that you've had to date? Thank you very much.
Thank you, UK. Tajikistan, you have the floor to answer for the first block of questions, and then we will move to the next countries, the next states. Mr. Submonov, you have the floor, number 43.
Thank you very much. Regarding the transition of the ETF, the plans of the government, it's already included in the National Development Strategy and medium-term program till 21 to 2025. For the first stage, as it was presented in my presentation, the government intends to build a regulatory framework, and with the second stage to involve more stakeholders to be under the report of the GNG inventory, and all the actions related to the mitigation and adaptation to be submitted to the focal points or define it, let's say, the Agency on Statistics or other organization, which will be defined in the later stage, in the second stage. With the third stage, government intends to include the private sector too, the entities who will like emit above the 50,000, like to be included in the GNG inventory by the annual base. And for the capacity building, while we were preparing the BUR itself and the NDC of Tajikistan, we were recalculating all the GNG inventories. So there was challenges for us. Some of the, let's say, emissions, the methane, the nitrous oxide were calculated. I mean, the GVPs were taken from the annual assessment report by the IPCC, second assessment report of the IPCC. So together with the international expertise, we revised all the data set. We include one assessment report 4 with the using of the IPCC methodology 2006. The lack, of course, there is a lack in the capacity by the national expertise. So in future, if Tajikistan will get some investment on the mitigation and the adaptation side, how to account, how to assess, and how to define the impacts, I mean the impact of the project to the mitigation process and adaptation process. In this case, we need some expertise and the support from the international community to bring us some knowledge and the methodology on this side. And with the question of United Kingdom, regarding the green economy, which was indicated in the National Development Strategy, of course, the government taking steps because this is a long-term strategy. Now we are looking at the stages of the implementation of this green economy by involving the private sector too. The Committee for Environmental Protection is also engaging with the GCF itself. We have an NDA secretariat where the colleagues are preparing some proposal for the public and the private partnership. On the government level, let's say in the West sector, there is a consideration to include the private companies who will deal with the West side. This is the first steps under the green economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tajikistan. And now we are moving to the second block of parties who have placed questions, who would like to place questions. Number 62, Luxembourg.
Thank you, Tajikistan, also for submitting this biennial update report. And I can read in this report that in 2014, according to your inventory, LULUCF represents, in absolute terms, almost a bit more than 17% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. So this is an important sector, an important sink in Tajikistan. And if we look at the country, you mentioned that the country is only covered by a few forests, only 3% of the country, if I remember well what I've read. It's a very mountainous country, also Tajikistan. So what are actually the most important source of sinks under the LULUCF sectors that you have reported in the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. The next party is Denmark, number 40.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Tajikistan. I would also like to congratulate with your first biennial update report. In your first biennial update report, you provided information on several mitigation actions in the agriculture and land sector, land use sector, especially in this table 29 on key policies and measures on climate change mitigation. So one example is the measure mentioned on page 53 regarding planting new forest on an area of more than 10,000 hectares and creating a forest sharing groups. Is this a public effort only, or do you, for instance, have incentives, economic incentives for private landowners or farmers to contribute with afforestation? Thank you.
Thank you, Denmark. And the last party is number 48, India.
Thank you, Chair. I would join other colleagues in congratulating Tajikistan for submitting the first BUR. My questions are related to the inventory. We observe that on page 34 you have mentioned about various tiers for the inventory. We see that you have used only tier 2 for the solid waste disposal. Were there any challenges in using the higher tiers for other sectors of the inventory? My second question is also related to inventory, and we would like to know the reasons for not reporting the emissions from the chemical industries as well as the ammonia production from 2009 onwards. Were they not estimated, or were these units got transformed into other sectors? Thank you.
Thank you, India. Number 43, Tajikistan, you have the floor for the answers.
Yeah, thank you. For the LULUCF sector, the things. Yes, of course, the area of Tajikistan, I mean, the forest covers about like 3% of the area, but still we have some things as estimated under the LULUCF. The other sources of the things, I think I need to contact with the experts to define it, and we will like email answer on this question. This is a very good question. And regarding the Denmark expanding forest areas, yes, there is a the resolution signed by Tajikistan. Let's say this is the Astana resolution, where the Tajikistan commitments to increase the forest areas. Of course, there is a consideration to include the private sector in this area, like. To include the private sector, let's say it's called like agroforestry, to expand the agroforestry in Tajikistan. So I hope in future all the forests which were like cut down after the collapse in 90s, they will be again yeah, the government will like do the reforestation on this side too. And now the committee is expanding the protected areas of Tajikistan. It's about like 22% of protected areas in Tajikistan. So the work is ongoing on the reforestation side too. So the inventory challenges, why we use the tier 1, tier 2 in some of the sectors. There is a challenges with the data acquisition, and there is a challenges with the uncertainties. The most of the inventory was conducted under the tier 1. So here we also have some gaps in future to be considered by the government to include more data for the inventory. Reasons for not reporting the chemical sector, let's say starting from 2009 until now, we are not reporting the chemical sectors. Some of the chemical industries are closed in Tajikistan. They were like working temporarily. By some reason they were closed. Now they are not operating. Thank you.
Thank you, Tajikistan. Dear delegates and colleagues, today we have heard presentations from 4 parties. I would like to extend my thanks and congratulate you all for actively engaging in these very fruitful and positive discussions. This type of interaction embodies the true spirit and principles of the ICA process. I would like now to suspend the session and resume with FSV Part 2 tomorrow, Saturday, November the 6th, at 11:30 for the FSV of Cambodia, Laos People's Democratic Republic, and India, followed by the joint closing of FSV and MA at the end of the MA session on Saturday, the 6th of November at approximately 17:25. We wish you a pleasant rest of the day and look forward to seeing you at the next session. The session is adjourned. Thank you.